Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
In this, the second part of our two-part series on Primal Fitness, we welcome Brad Kearns, co-author of many of Mark Sisson's books, including Primal Endurance, the host of the B.rad Podcast, former professional triathlete and world champion endurance athlete, and a guy who remains incredibly competitive in sports and fitness to this day, defying the usual laws of aging. Our conversation with Brad was awesome. We really took a hard look at the fitness industry, where the opportunities are for change and why. It's Brad's assertion, and we agree, that the fitness industry is due for a major renaissance. In part, it would serve us well to stop thinking of fitness as a separate component from health, as in the often used phrase, the health and fitness industry. Fitness is health. When fitness is done right, and care is taken to avoid overreaching, overtraining, injury, and burnout. Brad was the lead author on our newest certification offering at Primal Health Coach Institute, the Primal Fitness Coach certification course, a completely all-encompassing fitness coach certification program that will teach you the fundamentals of human movement, everything from strength training to aerobic conditioning to mobility, rest, and recovery, as well as the art and science of coaching and the essentials of building your coaching business. Or if you're already a practicing and certified health or fitness coach, you can add the Primal Fitness Expert certification to your roster of certs. There is nothing like this fitness certification on the market today. And trust me, I've got like 43 fitness certifications myself. Learn more about the Primal Fitness Coach course at www.primalhealthcoach.com/primal-fitness. This is just a really great conversation with Brad, and we do hope you'll enjoy it and maybe start to reconsider how you view human fitness for your clients. Once again, please welcome our guest, the always entertaining and thought-provoking Brad Kearns.
All right. Today on Health Coach Radio, we have the fabulous Brad Kearns back. How are you, Brad?
Oh my gosh, I'm fantastic. I'm so happy to connect with you guys and be back on Health Coach Radio.
I know. So we have you on for a very special reason. Spoiler alert, we're coming out with a very special course that you helped us write, the Primal Fitness Coach certification. Huge news. And we handpicked you, actually, because you seem to be the perfect fit to write this curriculum. Why don't you give our audience a little bit of a background story on you and kind of why you're the perfect fit for this?
It is huge news because it's an absolutely huge course. And we've been talking about it for so long and realizing that the foundation of taking the health coach curriculum and learning all about primal living has been, well received over the past, it's been how many years? 7 or 8 years since this whole deal started. But fitness is becoming, I think, more and more popular, especially with quarantine. People are doing it on their own. And now the gyms are back open and people are heading back. And I just see like an explosion or an awakening of the importance of fitness in a general life for health, vitality, longevity. And it's really great to see because, of course, we've been in the fitness game forever. But it's been overlooked by people like my peers, my old friends. Some people just don't work out. They just sit in a car, they go to the building, they sit at the desk, they consume digital entertainment at night. And now I see sort of a cultural trend in favor of realizing that we want to get out there and move our bodies. And at the same time, that's the good news. I'm also seeing these unfortunate trends prevail in the fitness scene, which is this struggle and suffer approach as a sort of a foundation or an ethos of how to get your body into good shape. And it's glamorized and glorified by the, no offense, six-pack females on the magazine covers. Like, really?
Right.
I refer you to Olympic runner Lauren Fleshman's. She has a blog article showing pictures of herself taken during the same week, and one of them was on the runway, all greased up and with the perfect lighting and her glistening six pack, and then another one was like a cameo while she was doing a workout, and she's like, everyone has thigh cheese, even Olympic runners, was her caption. It was hilarious because she showed how you can manipulate what the person really is like just from, that sensationalized image. But we're marching down this path and we're luring in the average well-meaning health enthusiast who tiptoes over to the gym hoping to do themselves a solid and get their life on track and get into the fitness realm. And in many cases, they get toasted by the mentality and the programming. And I'm especially picking on the mainstream programming because the most popular modes of fitness programming are by and large inherently overly stressful and putting an enthusiast at risk of breakdown, burnout, illness, and injury. And for those watching on video, you guys are both nodding your heads. We all know this when we're inside the scene and living and breathing this every day. But unfortunately, the average person is going in there, turning their life over, putting it into the hands of perhaps it's a Peloton workout that they're doing at home, or it's a trainer, or it's a group class with 27 other people. And there's not enough attention, in my opinion, to that individualized, sensible, baby steps approach to fitness where everything feels enjoyable. You make little progress, you make small celebrations and small victories, and you're never in that state of mind where you dread it, which it's so common. And then we have the attrition rates, which are validated to be extreme in things like the group training programs, like where they get together and they train for 6 months to compete in a destination event, a goal event like a marathon. And boy, isn't that great? You went from the couch to the marathon in 6 months, and then it's on your wall, and that's the last fitness objective you've done in the last 5 years because it just wasn't a good fit. And that's not answering your tee up question, Laura. So that's just my that's just on my mind right now as we get into how this course is so different. But for those who don't know me that are listening, I please direct you to your previous shows where we talked at length about all kinds of fun stuff in my background. But I'm a lifelong athlete. I've been in the fitness scene for so long, and I was formerly a professional triathlete. I had a great experience in my youth of pursuing my dream for a career and for my competitive aspirations. And I raced on the pro circuit all over the world for 9 years. At my best, I was national champ. I was ranked number 3 in the world. So I reached these really high levels as an athlete, but I also got my ass kicked so many times and had such pain and suffering of the psychological form as well as the physical form, and had to learn the hard way that it's really important to emphasize the process. It's to emphasize personal growth and development rather than being obsessed and fixated on outcomes, because that's when you struggle. That's when you make mistakes. And so when I was able to get into that center of power where my motivation was completely pure, and I love what I was doing every day, and I love to get on that bike seat and go off and pedal into the mountains for 5 hours and come back with a smile on my face and eat a nutritious meal and take a nap and then head over to the swimming pool and have some more fun swimming back and forth laps. When I was enjoying it to that level, that's when I was able to perform at my best. And at those other times when I was caught up in the business aspects of being an athlete, for example, and forcing the process of fitness to happen in a manner that wasn't natural or sustainable, that's when I struggled, and that's when I'd get tossed off the back of the pack anyway, even though I was being all tough and serious and competitive and driven and focused and all these things that we celebrate. So I'm here for the rest of my calling is to share with other people that, look, it doesn't have to be pain and suffering. You don't have to grit your teeth or, brave the minus 20-degree weather in Canada to get out there and put in your mileage. Otherwise, you're going to get out of shape. And that's what I have fun doing and love to connect with you guys on that level. Even from the coaching space, we're talking about doing everything in that manner, your dietary transformation and so forth. But I'm sure we'll redirect the conversation into the fitness and the specifics of how this course that we've developed is different.
We will. We
And
certainly
now
will.
we can all take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Okay.
We tap our parasympathetic nervous system state, which is another thing that gets missed in the fitness industry as well, a little bit. But honestly, Brad, that was such a wickedly great just summary of this sort of the two halves of the potential two halves of the fitness culture. We already know the struggle and suffer half of it, but no one's really been talking about the sort of more supportive, longevity inspired, true health. Mark called it utilitarian fitness, which is sort of like a notch almost, I don't know, above or below or lateral to functional. It's like, it's just sort of this basic human stuff. But I love how you described it. Everything feels enjoyable. You achieve small victories. You never dread it. Attrition becomes a non-issue, and your motivation to move comes from a place of happiness and joy. You know, I onboarded a new client today who one of her many, I guess, struggles with her body, with food, and with her health is that she feels like she has to do these punishing workouts 7 days a week, these punishing cardio, sort of chronic cardio workouts. And when I asked her, you know, why that felt important to her, all of her answers around these workouts came from a place of fear. There's fear, terrified of what happens if she lets go of this intense workout schedule. My body's going to change. I won't be fit. You know, just fear, 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 fear. Her motivation to do the workouts was fear and just worry. And so now you're flipping the script and saying, let's do it from a perspective of pure motivation and joy and happiness, which is such a paradigm shift, like an absolute paradigm shift, but one that the industry is, I think, speaking as a 30-year fitness industry vet, it's ripe for this renaissance for sure. So anyways, that was just a bravo sort of summary of where we're at and what brought us here. So thank you for that. Yeah, thoughts on that?
I think one thing to add on that is after spreading this message for many years, I've noticed there's a lot of inherent realization and understanding of it. It's not a radical new thing that we have to beat into your head and convince you that Brad's message makes sense. Everyone realizes this deep down.
Yeah.
And so then I go in for the kill, especially when I'm dealing with one-to-one client situation or when I have that opportunity to say, look, you know this to be true, but you're still out there, playing out, let's say, your fears, your insecurities, your obsessive compulsive behavior tendencies, and all these things tend to continue to sprinkle into the mix. So that's when the individual, with the support of a great caring coach, is compelled to look in the mirror and ask yourself, why the heck are you doing this to your body? Or why are you pursuing your fitness goals in general? And stay connected to that purpose at all times, because it's easy to get the ego brought into the mix where you forget about your highest ideals and your values. And I laugh because I'm thinking of these questionnaires that I would give to my triathlete clients, and they'd say, what are your goals for the season? What are your highest purpose and all? I'd ask these big picture questions, and they'd be like, I want to be a role model to my children ages 10 and 12 as I complete the Ironman and cross the finish line, and they can cheer for me. And I'm like, you kids 10 and 12 don't give a crap about what dad's doing for 16 hours out there all day long while they're getting dragged around to watch the bike finish and then the run start and then the run. They want to go get some cotton candy and some ice cream and play some video games and go to the beach. So don't kid yourself that this is something beyond, the personal growth aspects. And I think that part, and then on your day-to-day training decisions, we have to put the ego aside if desired, or if we don't want to put the ego aside and we want to just admit that, hey, I need an outlet for my obsessive compulsive tendencies and my frustration dealing with the workplace or the home. And so I'm just going to go blast another workout. That's okay. I'm not going to judge that anymore, right? Mm-hmm. It's okay. You do what you want to do with your life, but just be really clear about your purpose so that you don't then complain 4 months later that you have an overuse injury and you're so unlucky. And now you're going to have to try some different shoes because there goes your feet again. And that's about being honest and being, kind of vulnerable with your contribution as the individual to the quote unquote problem or whatever's not is completely satisfying.
Yeah. Well, I like that. That was good because a coach's job is to help the client connect to values. Like, why is this really important to you? And sometimes the client can they can kind of fake you out. Like you gave the example of the role modeling and, we come at this non-judgmentally. I want to role model, health and fitness for my kids. Well, why is that important to you? Or like, what does that look like for them? What type of behavior do you want to model for them? Obsessive exercise or longevity or an easy relationship with your body? Like we can go deeper and actually, and that's in my mind, the most important role of a coach is to truly connect to intrinsic motivations and values, because the fitness industry does hit it at kind of a shallow angle, and people know the right things to say to sound motivating, but what is the real motivation? So truly the fitness industry has kind of been missing this, has literally been missing this, I think. And I would say this with great respect to all my personal trainer peers, that we have spent time in the rep counting role long enough. Why not have conversations with your clients about what's truly important to them and what's really motivating them? And even this client that I onboarded today, when I asked her, what's motivating you to do these 7 workouts a day, she realized like there's nothing good. It's only fear and control. And that was a real aha for her. Nobody had asked her that specifically with respect to her first workout addiction. So this is the role of the coach in fitness, and we are certifying fitness coaches in this program. What do you think a fitness coach is, Brad?
I guess it's a new term, because we typically have the trainer who's been, pictured as a rep counter. That's sort of a criticism of, a basic level trainer. But there's so many wonderful people and people that have shaped my journey as an athlete that go so far beyond just talking about the nuts and bolts. I was just looking at an email newsletter from this guy, Dan Pfaff, Pfaff. He's one of the greatest track and field coaches of all time. He's coached many Olympic athletes, specialties in the jumps. But if you read sign up for his email newsletters, they're almost none of the content relates to technique, instruction, and his areas of expertise. I'm thinking of Kelly Starrett too, prominent name in the fitness scene. I did a long podcast with him, maybe close to 2 hours, and he almost didn't cover his area of expertise. He was more talking about plugging your mobile phone in the hallway instead of the bedroom, and hitting that point so hard. And it's like, wait, aren't you going to talk about shoulder mobility? No, because he's trying to look at this big picture and realize why people are coming into overuse injuries in the fitness scene. And it's because they're not giving themselves adequate rest, as a small aside example. And so I like pulling that perspective out. And I think we did a good job in the course trying to go beyond. I mean, if you're looking at the need to become competent in all manner of fitness instruction and knowledge, you're going to get some great videos and commentary about deadlift form and reps and proper design of a workout. But I think we try to sprinkle in that primal health coach oozing message of, hey, let's remember why we're doing it here and fit these things into overall daily lifestyle conveniently, rather than, I think a lot of fitness programming, they assume the participant is coming in with an Olympic athlete type lifestyle where they're saying, do this, do that, do this, do that. And it adds up to, 27 minutes before you start your workout. It's like, wait, my workout's supposed to be 27 minutes because I got to go pick up the kids at nursery school. That part's kind of missing too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's interesting when I listen to people who have been in the industry for a very long time and at the top of their game and truly identify as coaches. The podcasts I listen to, a lot of the things that I end up reading about is all about all the other stuff. I mean, we interviewed John Berardi, right? Who was like a nutrition PhD, exercise science PhD kind of a guy who wrote a book called, what's it called? Change Maker, I think, right? And it's all about sort of mindset and all the other stuff. The same thing with Kelly Starrett. So I think once a coach really feels as though they've dialed in that side, they're an expert in that, and yeah, that's important and all this other stuff. But I think the longer you're in this business, the more you realize how much more important all the stuff that happens in your client's life outside of that hour that you have with them is. And all the training certifications that are out there only cover that. Right. So what we've developed here, what we've asked you to develop is, the expertise in this primal fitness in particular, which we've really kind of coined as, fitness for longevity, for life, a lifestyle of fitness. And then, and from there, you're just sort of an expert. I think most of the programs out there they're trainer programs, right? I coach at a CrossFit gym down the street here, and I've got a tank that says coach. When I'm there for an hour, I'm not coaching, I'm instructing is what I'm doing. Or perhaps I'm programming or what have, but I'm not really coaching in that hour. Coaching is what really happens outside of what's in the gym. And so when you compile all the aspects of what's going to be the Primal Fitness Coach certification, is the expertise in this sort of fitness for function and longevity in life, but then coaching and business. But we really needed to flush out all the details of what that means, right? Not just functional fitness. We talked about utilitarian fitness, but also just fitness as a lifestyle is really what I think you brought us, and added a lot of nuance and detail on how this all fits in. So do you mind walking us through like the actual curriculum and the content that you wrote?
Did you say walking? Why, that is a wonderful term to use, because I think if we want to jump to some of the big takeaways, I think the way that this programming differs or stands out is that first and foremost, we reject that flawed mentality of struggle and suffer, and do everything possible to get away from anything that has even the slightest whiff of a chronic pattern in your exercise program, because that is truly a disaster. I told you about my triathlon background, and this is, decades ago. And now it's really tragic to see there's a high prevalence of long-term extreme endurance athletes coming up with heart problems in their later years. And many of my peers have suffered extreme misfortune, like the great Steve Larson, one of the greatest endurance athletes of all time in America. He competed in the Giro d'Italia as a pro cyclist. He won the world in Xterra triathlon. He set the bike course record at Hawaii Ironman, and he dropped dead of a heart attack at age 39 while doing a track workout in Bend, Oregon. He left 4 kids, 2 businesses. He was a real go-getter. He was still racing at the pro level at age 39 while running 2 businesses and raising 4 kids. And this picture of fitness, suffered a tragic health consequence, and it's not uncommon. Everyone who suffers something thinks it is, and I might get an email from a friend of a friend, and they're like, wow, it was a shock that I went into the cardiologist and they said, dude, you need a pacemaker. It's like, it's not a shock anymore. And we're now learning this. There's great content like on a TED Talk, Run for Your Life, but not too far and at a slow pace. That's Dr. James O'Keefe, and he's a leading researcher in the extreme endurance exercise hypothesis. The same thing is playing out in CrossFit, and there's all those jokes about you can see the body from across the parking lot, and then you can see the scars up close, or those jokes like that, where the physique is incredible, but so many injuries and so much attrition. And so getting away from that and simplifying the objective of being fit or even super fit in a minimal amount of time. And a guy named Mark Sisson started talking about this in 2005, 2006. And it's been nice to see people finally listen to where you can go and with a strategic approach, require very little time devotion and get up to, the highest standards for health, longevity, and even peak performance goals. So when we start this course, we spend a lot of time out of the gate talking about this concept of balancing fitness and health, or doing fitness to support health goals. Also plug to Dr. Phil Maffetone, who's a leader in the endurance scene for many years, best-selling author. And his first book that really captivated me back when I was an extreme, hard training competitive athlete, it was called In Fitness and in Health. And he talked about how those are 2 different things. And that was like a mind blower, because if you're walking around with a 6-pack and the ability to climb the mountain in 17 minutes, you think you're healthy, but not necessarily. So that's our wonderful starting point there. And then when you said walk us through it, the other big, huge one for everyone, and I'm talking about the sedentary population as well as the extreme fitness population, the super fit folks, we all share this incredible obligation to increase all forms of general everyday movement. And especially those of us in the fitness category who seem to be packing some hall passes in the pocket, giving us free reign to not only sit around for the rest of the day because we slammed that 6 a.m. spin class, but also to indulge in the celebratory foods of the athletic community. And so the reason this is becoming so important, there's so much science behind it. We've all seen those headlines sitting in the new smoking. There's an actual scientific phenomenon called the active couch potato syndrome, which is where those with a very sincere devotion to fitness. So let's say they're working out for an hour a day at the gym, 7 days a week or whatever, hitting that punch card really nicely. They nevertheless suffer from similar metabolic risk factors to those who are sedentary, because that 7 hours a week, when you transpose it into the 168 hours that are in a week, I don't know how many there are in Canada, but in America, there's 168 hours in a week. That's a small little slice of the pie. So if you're on the subway and sitting at the desk and sitting on the couch for the rest of that time, you are causing all kinds of, promoting all kinds of dysfunction and health consequences. And for everyone to embrace this idea of just getting out and walking and realizing that actually counts as an awesome workout and has so many cardiovascular fitness benefits. It goes right in there with those grueling long bicycle rides and the glamorous stuff that we tend to fixate on. And so that is chapter 2. Maybe we will work our way all the way through the course curriculum unless we get on too many awesome asides. But the first one's talking about how fitness supports health and longevity. And the second one is talking about how to just move more in daily life without that pressure of needing to perform or needing to be in a competitive setting. Because I know a lot of people are intimidated by setting foot in the gym, or even hiring a trainer. And so, meet the trainer in the park and you guys are going to walk 2 laps. And that's going to be the beginning of a wonderful relationship where maybe someday down the road, we'll go over to the bench and do some dips, but it doesn't have to be bells and whistles. It can just be those baby steps forward.
I love the idea of a fitness coach taking a walk with their client. That is actually very cool.
Big bucks in that. Yeah.
I know, but this is just a personal anecdote when you were sharing that, the idea that walking is the foundational exercise. I have articulated that walking is also strength training. And my anecdote is that when gyms closed down, I just doubled down on walking. When gyms opened back up, I got right back under the barbell and hadn't lost strength just by walking, which actually seems counterintuitive, but there's a lot of strength in, this very unique bipedal thing that we have going on. And it is the foundational human movement pattern. And we get stronger when we do it. I love it.
Yeah, that's amazing that you didn't lose any strength. And I've had several of those revelations in recent years where I haven't been in there in a long time. And then I go in and do the workout that approximated what I could do when I thought I was in, top form. And so then you realize, geez, we don't need to be so consistent as we've been told and pounded into our head.
Yeah. Well, or it's like your grip on fitness, body composition, et cetera, shouldn't be so tenuous, right? Where if I go on vacation for a week and now I've, right? Like it should linger. It should be the kind of thing you can drop into and out of, because the human animal is a badass, and it shouldn't be this sort of this very, very delicate balance between being in or out.
Yeah, the triathletes, we used to have this saying, it's better to be 10% undertrained than 2% overtrained before a big race. And when you think about like the hardest thing that an athlete is striving for, like finishing an ultra marathon or finishing an Ironman or climbing that mountain peak at the end of the summer that you've been training for diligently for weeks and weeks. Maffetone made a good point on this where he said, the brain doesn't have to be trained to suffer. Your brain will do just fine. And for example, to illustrate this concept, if I come over there and put a gun to your head right now, we are going to run a marathon. I don't care how much training you've missed or made in the last 6 months, you're going to finish, because the brain knows how to suffer and go deep into the well to overcome, the doubting thoughts and get to the top of the mountain or get to the finish line. Secondly, the anaerobic muscle fibers also do not need to be trained to suffer or to endure, because they are by definition explosive and they work without oxygen to perform brief explosive movements. Therefore, the template workout for whatever, fill in the blank, that lasts for a long time, and you're being asked to fire the explosive muscle fibers over and over again, is not really training, more so than it is just breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where we're getting back to that primal, hopefully a lot of listeners are familiar with that primal blueprint fitness model of doing brief explosive work, but it doesn't last that long. You go hard and you go home, rather than this chronic approach where you're doing yet another set and yet another set and yet another set, and being told to push it for this last sprint on the bike. Our 10th one is going to be, the end. And maybe the fourth one would have been a better ending for many of the people in there. So you don't have to train the brain. You don't have to train the anaerobic system. And how do you best train the aerobic system? You best train the aerobic system at a very slow, comfortable pace, because that's what the aerobic system is, the fat burning. And we know about the maximum aerobic function heart rate. That's the maximum fat oxidation per minute, approximately 180 minus your age. And those unfamiliar with what that pace feels like for almost everyone is very, very, very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And back when I was a triathlete, racing at the highest level, I would do a lot of workouts that were 20, 30, 40, or 50 beats below my maximum aerobic function heart rate, which was 155 when I was younger. So I would go and pedal my bicycle on the flat ground at 105 heartbeat for a couple hours. And that was a wonderful training session. Just like walking would generate a heart rate that would be hopefully a couple dozen beats below your maximum aerobic heart rate. And so that is literally an excellent training session in so many ways. And back to your point, Aaron, the aerobic muscle fibers nourish and oxygenate the anaerobic muscle fibers so that the waste products can be removed and they can function optimally. So by walking around, you are indeed honing that anaerobic power and that explosiveness, because you're giving your body the movement, the blood flowing, the oxygen delivery, the lymphatic system working to keep you pure and flushed of toxins and so forth. So that's why movement is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it indeed will contribute to your badass goals of making the regional CrossFit games or whatever it is that you think is unrelated to walking.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this should be the foundational piece for every client that you're working with. It's almost as though they need to have homework of what they should be doing outside of working with you, which is finding ways to move more, whether it's taking a walk in the morning or taking a walk at night or standing more at your desk or taking breaks and walking around. Maybe it's parking farther away in the parking lot and forcing yourself to just move more. They're like just baseline movement is tremendous. And then the next chapter in the course is about just proper human posture. I see this in my group classes all the time. I'm sure you do, Aaron, too, of people that just don't move well. They don't stand right. They don't sit right. I kind of should probably say that in air quotes, but you could just tell by looking at them that their posture doesn't, it probably feels natural to them, but it doesn't look healthy. So you want to speak to that a little bit about what you mean by these natural sort of human healthy postures?
Well, I think the chapter you're talking about starts out with the fundamentals of spinal health, spinal integrity. And that's really important because it's pretty easy to get injured when you're doing all manner of fitness endeavors, especially if you are a modern citizen that spends a lot of time in a sitting position. And so we actually go through some intense education about how to stand, sit, lie down, bend over, extend the body correctly. And there's been so many leaders in this world. So we're bringing in the greatest content from the greatest leaders like Dr. Esther Gokle and Kelly Starrett. And so it's really kind of streamlined into this fitness educational course where we're picking and choosing from people who have spent their life's work doing this. Katie Bowman, I should also mention, Nutritious Movement. And I'm really happy with how the videos came out, because there's a lot of written content, but those of us who want to learn in different modalities, you can watch these videos, and I promise you it'll be life-changing, like it was for me when I saw the first presentation of Esther Gokle at PrimalCon in 2010. And of course, I was coordinating the event. So I was busy with my clipboard and my cell phone. And I'm like looking in on all these different presentations at the beautiful beach park where we had it in Southern California. And this lady captivated me because she's getting everybody to sit in a chair properly. Like, who knows, what are we doing over here? They're just sitting in chairs and they're standing up, and they're sitting in chairs again and they're standing up. And then she's going around and checking and poking between your shoulder blades and pushing on 1 inch below your belly button. And I learned that day how to stand correctly for the first time. And I never, not a day has gone by in 12 years where I haven't thought about her tips and those checkpoints as I go through my daily life. Because like a lot of modern male humans, especially, I had that hunched over, shoulders forward, neck compressed posture that we see. I think commonly I see it more in males than females. A lot of females have excellent posture, maybe because they've been reading all the modeling magazines their whole life. Oh my gosh, those are all such judgmental, politically inappropriate comments. But most dudes out there have horrible posture, and a lot of it's driven by the things we do in hunched over position: texting, driving, swimming, cycling. So we're even though we're sporty, we're still building into that hunched over posture. Bench pressing with poor form. So we spend a lot of time jumping chapters forward to like, look, pinch your shoulder blades together when you bench press and keep them in that position. Oh, let's see what your PR drops down to now when you do it correctly. Isn't that great news rather than bad news? But those standing, sitting fundamentals for me have been life-changing. And just as a quick takeaway, like when you're standing up straight, you want your shoulders in line with your spine. And one way to kind of checkpoint and get into this position is to rotate your palms outward. So your palms are facing forward when you're standing up. And when you gently rotate your palms, I'm not talking about pinching your shoulder blades in an exaggerated manner when it's time to take the picture, like you see a lot of people in the family portrait. It's just gently rolling those shoulder blades back and down into their safe and retracted position, and pretty much preserving these fundamentals when you're doing all manner of athletic activity. So before we talk about how to improve your play at shortstop or on defense in basketball, or when you're doing a deadlift, guess what? They all have that same common denominator of a straight and elongated spine and a protected trunk and core area. And that was really fun to kind of set up the fitness experience with these basics that apply when you're reaching for a can of beans on the shelf at the grocery store. But of course, none of our clients or market would be doing that. But the point is well taken.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. It's interesting because I'm heading to a physical therapy appointment after this call. And for the first session, we worked on setting my shoulder blades, and I'd been doing it wrong for my whole life. So that was a little bit of a rude awakening.
I have this great trainer in Los Angeles, Jeff Page, and he talks about technical failure. So everything you're doing in his workout one-on-one is going to technical failure. And I have such a competitive mentality. And so I'm going to do my 15 45-degree dumbbell raises. And he goes, that's good at 11. I'm like, and he goes, that's good. You're done. I'm like, oh, wait, but I'm not tired yet. I can do more. And for me, that's also a breakthrough. To leave that competitive intensity in the proper pocket and go to especially a strength training session where you're focused on technique and doing it right and performing until technical failure and realizing, okay, of course I'm not tired yet, but the point here is to execute everything with precise technique. And especially jumping ahead just for a quick comment, like with running and sprinting, which is my passion right now. There's so much to learn about technique on what seemingly is the most simple and not technique oriented sport, but we spend a lot of time on that, and probably too much time because I insisted on it. But you're going to learn all the technique checkpoints for everything you can imagine, even the most simple things that you think are, done deal.
Yeah. So the next chapter is breathing. So just so we're clear, we've come through fitness for health, we've come through everyday movement, human posture, and movement fundamentals. Now we're on to breathing. What's so interesting to me is that the first, 4 chapters of this course aren't even really about what we typically think of as exercise, but we're putting this down in order of importance. So I don't know. Give us the little speech on breathing. Why is this making it to the top of the list on our chapters?
Oh my gosh, I thought nothing of this for my whole life, especially as it relates to fitness goals, because it seems like we always have plenty of air to breathe when
Hmm.
we're performing. And then I saw Wim Hof become a sensation and he's doing his breathing stuff. And I dabbled in that. I tried it a few times and it was fun to see that I could hold my breath for longer and then just let it go. And I went about my busy day and my busy life. But now what we see is this amazing avalanche of information, research, and explosion in popularity of intentional breathing for all manner of fitness and life goals. Of course, it's always been there as a centerpiece of yoga and meditation, but now I think the average person on the street realizes that being intentional about your breathing has all kinds of health benefits. You talked about getting into parasympathetic at the start of the show, Aaron, and it's like an instant way to access your physiology. Um, Dr. Huberman has talked about this on lengthy podcasts that if you're unfamiliar with why breathing is so popular, what's the big deal, you can go get a lot of content. One of my favorite books I recommend is called The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick McKeown. And since we don't have an hour to talk about breathing, his takeaway quip has been another life changer for me. And he says, essentially, what this is all about is to strive to breathe as minimally as possible through your nose only at all times for the rest of your life. And so, this notion that we're supposed to take a deep breath when we're stressed and to take a deep breath, calm down, that's actually the opposite. And when you can minimize your breathing, that's when you can access parasympathetic function. And when you can get good at minimizing breathing during fitness activity, this is a centerpiece of chemistry and biology, the Bohr Effect. It's Bohr. So it's not like someone's new theory and try this at your next workout. This is what a science student will be nodding their head going, oh yeah, the Bohr Effect. And the Bohr Effect implies that when you can breathe minimally and build up more carbon dioxide because you're not sucking in a ton of oxygen with this heavy breathing that we're inclined to do, especially when we're in sympathetic nervous system dominance. When you can breathe minimally, you build up your tolerance for carbon dioxide in the bloodstream. And when you build up your tolerance, when you have an increased tolerance for carbon dioxide in the bloodstream, you deliver more oxygen to the working muscles and tissues that need it. So the more minimal you're breathing, the more oxygen delivery to muscles and tissues. It seems kind of backwards, like when we're sucking in air and thinking that's going to help us get more air to perform better. It's actually, we need to breathe as much as we need to breathe so we don't pass out. So when I provide that quote, breathe as minimally as possible through your nose only at all times for the rest of your life, as minimally as possible during my sprint workout. When I'm finished with the sprint, I'm sucking air like nobody's business. I demonstrate on the videos how I finish a sprint. I'm breathing like an athlete who just finished a sprint is breathing. And then as quickly as I can, and I'm doing these hand gestures while the cameraman's filming me, as quickly as I can, I'm taking it down, 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 down. Then I draw my finger across my lips and I close my mouth and I lock down and I start breathing aggressively through my nose, of course. And then I take that down, I take that down, I take that down. And then I'm back to minimal nose breathing 27 seconds after a high intensity sprint workout. And it's been nice to see how the skill is building up over time by practicing it. This also minimizes the stress impact of the workout because you're turning on that parasympathetic when you're minimizing your breathing. And so it works at the office when you're trying not to get too stressed, and it works during fitness activities. And so there's going to be exercises provided, video instruction. We do give a nod to some of the advanced breathing techniques that people are hearing about, such as the amazing exploits of Wim Hof, and the book called The Wedge by Scott Carney was really amazing. Two books, The Wedge and What Doesn't Kill Us is the title of the other book. And he week to perform these extreme feats of cold exposure and endurance through the breathing techniques that are popularized by Wim Hof. One of them was they took a group of 27 various levels of experience in mountaineering, and Wim Hof's group climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in just over 24 hours, which destroyed the previous record for ascent because people have to acclimate. It's 19,000 feet at the top. But by going through these breathing exercises before, during, and during the hike, they just marched up the mountain. Even average people, like the author of the books, he wasn't, he's an everyday guy, pretty fit, but he broke through he transcended these previously believed fitness limitations, specifically through breathing exercises. So that's why it deserves a whole chapter in the course.
A whole chapter, and it differentiates the program. One of the many things that differentiates this course from so many that are out there.
Yeah. And if you want to skip it, if it bores you, if the subject bores you, let me just say this: breathe as minimally as possible through your nose only at all times for the rest of your life.
Yes. Love it. So then we get into exercise. And so I think what we'll do is we'll just kind of cluster the movement specific chapters and just kind of quickly hustle through them. So the first thing we start with, because we do get into strength training, cardiovascular, respiratory endurance, resistance exercise like deadlifting and squatting, free weights, we get into, straight up training. But our first movement chapters are in stretching, mobility, flexibility, balance, and injury prevention. So we start with that. We didn't put that as an afterthought, like, okay, after you crush yourself, and then, take care of yourself. We put the recovery piece on the front burner. So speak to that a little. I mean, you have spoken to that a little bit. This is in the spirit of extracting ourselves from the suffer and struggle. But I think the thing I'm excited about with this course is that we are prioritizing recovery over crushing. Like recovery comes first, crushing, we don't really talk about crushing, but so maybe
there's the word crushing appears in the text a few times just for fun.
Yes.
Just to keep people excited. Yeah, what's interesting, I'm thinking on that note, the way you just described that beautifully, let me give you a window into the lifestyle and the training habits of elite athletes in every sport. The Olympians, the great sprinters. I'm fascinated watching Elaine Thompson, the fastest female probably of all time, heading into the World Championships, which I'm going to attend, the World Track and Field Championships for the first time in America. Watching these amazing NBA basketball players, the cyclists that compete in the Tour de France, and we have this romanticized notion that these people are superhuman machines and they crush it every day in training. But what's amazing is how they universally perform well within their capabilities on a day-to-day basis. So that term of crushing a workout, for them, it's just routine, everyday, going to work, business as usual. Maybe the best example, and I think we actually, I forget what chapter, but I talk about Usain Bolt and Eliud Kipchoge. Kipchoge is the greatest marathon runner of all times, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest endurance athlete that's ever walked on earth. And he's the guy who ran a 1:59 for the marathon run. And Usain Bolt, of course, most people know that he's the greatest sprinter of all time. And Kipchoge's training it's a sensational performance week in, week out. He works very, very hard at high altitude. His easy day is an 18-mile run at 6-minute pace at high altitude. And so that'll bug your eyes out if you have any reference to what running fast means. However, that's a minute and a half slower than his marathon world record pace. So he's literally jogging at 6-minute pace per mile. That has no reference to you or I or anyone else, a casual enthusiast, but what it shows is that these workouts are very impressive and minimally stressful to him and his buildup over years and decades, and have the amazing genetic gifts, which we should also realize those people on top, they might be better at recovering than you, all other things being equal. So don't try to model everything they're doing. And then on the Usain Bolt side, if you watch his beautiful biography on Netflix and several books about him, he was universally characterized as quote unquote lazy in training, a party guy who liked to go out to the clubs and have fun. And he was always loosey-goosey and goofy. You saw him with the camera on him right before they get into the starting blocks for the Olympic final. And he's doing all his gestures and his posturing and all that. And that was his true personality coming to life, where he was in an ideal peak performance state because he wasn't all tightly wound and stuck on himself. And when he was feeling lazy in training, we all have to sit back and take a shallow breath and say, wait a second, this is the greatest sprinter of all time who peaked on demand like no other athlete to win again and again in the Olympics and the World Championships. And so if he was feeling lazy or wanting to take some extra time in the off season to go to the clubs and loosen up and hang out, maybe he represents the highest level of sophistication of athletic training rather than remember the old Rocky Four where it was Rocky against Drago, the Soviet creation where he was in the laboratory and everything was totally idealized, where every workout was measured and his blood was sampled. It's like, no, that's a movie. And here's the very best guy who likes to go to the beach and go to the clubs and then, break world records. And so maybe we can all relax a little bit and realize that listening to those voices, especially perhaps sometimes the lazy voice when we're talking about a highly motivated population, maybe that's something to really honor and listen to and dial back one or two notches. And guess who's listening really closely to this? Brad Kearns right now, because I still struggle today with my wonderful enthusiasm and competitive intensity. I go out there, I do a workout, I know what I'm doing, I know about the right timing and the right warm-ups and all that. I feel great while I'm at it. And then the next 48 to 72 hours, I get these awakenings like, dude, you're in the 55 plus age division. You're not in the Olympic talent pool. What the hell was I thinking? And I get this message with tight calves, my heels burning up again, my right glute is locked up again, which is an indication that guess what? I overdid it. I exceeded my capabilities, and I made essentially what amounts to a mistake through this devoted, awesome workout that I got smiley face into my training log because I wasn't properly and most intuitively accepting that I need to tone down that competitive intensity at times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think like mobility, stretching, flexibility, and every course I've taken gets like a nod. And oh, by the way, this is something Erin mentioned, like it's like an afterthought. I love the fact that we put this first. It's almost as though you need to truly be mobile and flexible to do any real movement well, and to do it safely and to get the benefit of the whole reason you're doing this in the first place. And I do think there are far more trainers that are not well versed in how to use a foam roller properly, how to properly stretch a hip flexor. And I don't know how many people have come up to me and they're like, I have this thing right here. And they're pointing to essentially like that groin area, those little tendons that are between their legs. And most trainers don't know how to help people, first of all, keep them from pulling it in the first place. Right. And then teaching them how to kind of, I guess nurture it a little bit after that workout and understanding what some of the movements that they're putting people through, what these little muscles and tendons are going through and how to help them from the standpoint of not only mobility before you start your workout, but afterwards and in the days in between. So I just think it being a foundational chapter in the beginning to make sure anyone taking this course understands the role it plays and how important it is super smart, rather than having people burn through it. Because the rest of this stuff, like, there's something in here for literally everybody. Chapter 6 gets into cardio, fitness, and endurance. We get into substrate utilization and exercise intensities, aerobic function and foundation, and the difference between that versus cardio, monitoring your heart rate. All of this stuff is built in there. We get into the benefits of high intensity exercise, because I know high intensity exercise is a favorite of a lot of people, whether it's the F45s, the CrossFit folks, the Orange Theory folks, that high intensity training. And we talk about that and the benefit of it. I just think for many people, it's abused. It's misused.
Yeah, it's easy to overdo it. Tons of benefits and a higher risk factor too. And just for a simple, memorable takeaway, if you just shorten everything and turn all the dials down, you're going to get wonderful fitness stimulation with minimal risk. I'm thinking of one of my heroes, the great high jumper, Mutaz Essa Barshim of Qatar. He's the number 2 high jumper of all time. He jumped 7'11 3/4, which is the height of a typical ceiling in a typical home. And he just had an interview as we're building up to the World Championships. He won the gold medal last year in the Olympics, tied for the gold medal. Wonderful story with the Italian Gianmarco Tamberi. But he said, right now, my main goal in training is to not get injured. Oh, what a soundbite. I mean, he wasn't joking. It wasn't a throwaway line. That's his number one goal. And his number two goal is to win the gold medal. His number three goal is to break the world record. Number four goal, whatever. But like, you, just as you were reading down the chapters, Laura, it's like, guess what? Hold on. Let me do a quick review here. I'm going to pull it up. Doesn't matter if you're injured. This chapter, no, doesn't matter if you're injured. This chapter, no, doesn't matter. This chapter, no. Oh, sprinting, no, doesn't matter if you're injured. So you can skip a whole bunch of crap here if you're injured, or you can go through the course in the order that it's presented.
That was great. I was thinking that too, because I'm battling an injury right now that came from doing stupid shit in the gym. And it's like, now I can't do anything. I can't do anything because I was hot dogging at one time for what purpose, I don't know.
I hope we got it on video for your sensational Instagram account. I hope at least if you're going to get injured, go out swinging. Yeah, like the parkour guy, Dom Tomato on Instagram. You ever seen him? He jumps off the cement staircase and lands on a wall, pushes off, does a backflip, and like this crazy stuff. And it's all captured on video, but man, what a price to pay. The risk of getting a viral video is pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I'm not about that. Yeah, so really good. So then we kind of close out the course with mindset, peak performance, overreaching, overtraining, and burnout. I'm addicted to the fact that we have a chapter on this. And rest, recovery, sleep, and downtime. And that's kind of from a programming perspective where our Primal Fitness course kind of winds down. I know you did speak to overreaching, you spoke to this suffer culture, but maybe just as a sort of parting thought, what is overreaching versus overtraining? Is there a difference between those two? There is. Like, how would you describe the difference between those two things?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a new term that someone came up with, and it's appropriate to distinguish a little bit. But I generally would love to avoid either of those, both of those. And so overreaching is this temporary state of excess fight or flight stimulation, where actually in many cases you can feel awesome. And I went through this so many times in my athletic career where I would get into these training cycles, as they call them, where we go to the mountains at high altitude and slam it for 6 weeks. And we feel great every day because of the fresh air and the competitive setting, and leaving your the responsibilities and the logistics of your everyday life behind. And you're at training camp and you're crushing it. And you wake up the next day and guess what? You're not sore. You're alert. You're energized early in the morning. And we go out and do another one, and the next day and the next day. And what happens when you push yourself to a high level of ask in your performance goals? You start to stimulate the fight or flight response to keep up. And the body does a wonderful job allowing you to perform at your peak over and over until it finally becomes exhausted. And I think you can draw an exact analogy physiologically to, you had a family crisis. You're going to the hospital on vigil for 27 days in a row. You're taking turns with the other loved ones, and you're going to take the night shift next time because the other person deserves a break. And you wake up in the morning, your hands are a little shaky, you're not hungry, someone's forcing you to take an apple with you so you'll have something to eat, and you forget to eat it, and you're just going on fumes for hours and hours. How about going through a painful breakup or a crisis with a child? These areas of life where we're just in crisis mode and we're burning fumes. However, if you were to, ask, are you tired? No, I'm not tired. I don't need a nap. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to push through. And that's a crisis, but it's the same physiologically as an elevated training binge or competitive binge or whatever you want to call it. And it's so common. And because it's pleasurable, enjoyable, rather than a crisis at the hospital or a breakup or a tough time with kids, you're just going with the flow, baby. It's like, yeah, I'm getting in better shape now. I just rode 80 yesterday, and today we did 67, and I felt great, and I dropped everybody on the last climb. And there are warning signs of impending doom. And that's what overreaching is all about. And in doing the research for this section, it's really fascinating because it's very likely that every single world record in the endurance sports especially, was set by someone in a state of overreaching, in an unhealthy hormonal state with excess fight or flight hormones bathing in their bloodstream. I call it the cortisol shower head in the book Primal Endurance, where you're just spraying cortisol every day, going out there and knocking out more impressive workouts. So if you can kind of head things off at the pass and shut things down because you intuitively realize that you're pushing beyond your previously known capabilities, that's when you become a really smart and highly attuned athlete rather than just a competitive beast who can go out there and call upon the fumes to get stuff done that should never get done.
Amazing. But I love that we have this.
Overtraining, you can go take the course and we'll tell you all about. And I do have to say with great pride that I believe this chapter of this course has the most exhaustive and specific and precise set of symptoms for both overreaching and overtraining that I've ever seen. And it required compiling data from the great leaders and articles and studies. And it is a definite highlight of the course. And if you can kind of commit all that stuff to memory, and we have different categories. So we have like these digestive symptoms, we have cognitive symptoms, we have mood, behavior, emotional symptoms, and of course the physical symptoms. You can't lift as much weight when you're at the gym. Duh, you're overtrained. But there's so many nuances that are important to understand. And it's a beautiful experience to go through that. And there's really no turning back, because once you understand, especially what overreaching is all about, and that's why I mentioned the family crisis, we can all nod our head and go, yeah, I recall. Yeah, I didn't sleep much. I was sleeping 5 hours a night, and I got up every morning, bright, bushy-tailed as a bunny, to go and suffer again. And boy, to get through life, we're going to be facing those kind of things. But please don't do it with your fitness programming. Otherwise, boy, you're missing out.
Yeah. Well, and I see it all the time in my gym, and it's people that have like, you know what, Coach Laura, I've plateaued. I can't lift anymore. What should I be doing? How should I be training to get stronger? I'm like, take 3 days off. You need to rest. The benefit of any training comes in the recovery process. And if we don't actively coach people through how to recover properly, then all the training we're going to give you around endurance training or aerobic training, all the training we're going to give you around resistance training, because that's in there, all the education we're going to give you around sprinting and jumping, all that stuff is useless if the body doesn't have the ability to recover and come back stronger, faster, better. So this needs to all be interwoven. And I think that's what you've done a phenomenal job with in here. We've taught the person taking this course, you're teaching them how to be a great trainer and how to use these different modalities, these different types of exercise to achieve the ultimate goal that the client might be looking for, which is going to be different from person to person. But you've interwoven this with all the other little aspects of their lifestyle and the ability for their body to actually gain what it needs to gain from the actual activity. And it's a big missing link in a lot of the other programs out there. And I think people taking this are going to find themselves pretty well-rounded.
Well said. And I'm thinking of that athlete, which is so common, so familiar, that mindset, that personality that doesn't want to back off. And the secret here is we're not telling you to go sit on the couch and eat Ben and Jerry's. Right. The secret is to just, if you turn those dials down and formulate this ability to go into the gym and do a 70% session, or for me, it's going to the track. When I get to the track, when I get to the facility of the rubber track that goes around in a circle, I am lit up because I don't go there very frequently. And when I go there, I'm going to get work done. And it's time to rock the heavy metal tunes, or the major the M&Ms coming out to play, because this is time to get down to business. And I finally realized I need to get to that track and have a 70% day. And that's what will support my development of those days where it is time to open up the throttle a little bit more. And when you throw out these numbers without the context, like, 70%, I lift at 70% of my 1 rep max, or I do 200 meter repeats at 70% of my best time, it's ridiculously slow, to the extent that any competitive type is going to have to go, what? Are you serious? You want me to do bicep curls with 10 pounds? What, excuse me, what for? And compare yourself right there in that quick example to the greatest athletes on the planet who are going to watch in the Olympics and in the pros. They are doing exactly that. they are performing well below their maximum capability. However, it looks way more impressive than you doing bicep curls with 10 pounds. It's just the exact same context and training approach.
Yeah, I love that. The analogy of the athletes is really just interesting and incredible. And I don't know, Brad, I think you've really knocked it out of the park with this curriculum, and we really appreciate you running us through it with your unique flair and dynamism.
You guys bring it out. You bring out the best in me. We rock it every time.
It's the stories and the context, I think, are what help bring it alive, particularly if people listening are trainers or people who have been in the fitness realm. They know what we're talking about because they've seen it themselves. And so, I think what you've built here is something fantastic for someone who wants to enter the fitness world. Mm-hmm. I think it's fantastic for people that are already there and want to just take a course that's developed from a different point of view.
Yeah.
But I also see it as people that work with high-level athletes that need to teach these athletes just how to move for the sake of moving rather than always training for their sport. That I think gets missing when we see people that have been competitive for decades. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at all the injuries in the major sports. They've never been trained because they're too much of a superstar from day one. They were thrown right into the swimming pool to swim laps. Mm-hmm. They can't run 3 miles without their knees aching, but who cares? I mean, so yeah, it extends across all levels from novice to elite.
Yeah, I love it.
It's cool. And we're going to teach people how to coach. So it's the emergence of the fitness coach. We are sticking our flag in the ground. We're doing it. And we really appreciate, Brad, you developing this curriculum for us and for sharing your wisdom with us on this chat.
What a great show. I'm excited to participate in the program now that it's done. I'm going to go back as a student and learn everything. Oh my gosh, it's going to be fun. And don't forget chapter 15, how to get that body down to your ideal body composition. It's such a prominent goal. I remember one podcast guest I had, William Schufeld, who's a six-pack wielding fitness machine himself. He's on the cover of our book, Carnivore Cooking for Cool Dudes. And he said, everybody tries to downplay, like, well, I want to feel good and be energetic. He goes, people want to look hot. That's just there. Everyone kind of, tries to gloss over that. But we tried to address it in the last chapter to say, look, if you're doing everything right and you want to drop that final 5, 10, 15, 20 pounds of excess body fat, let's give you a proper strategy here and just hit this thing head on rather than trying to dance around it.
Mm-hmm.
Love it.
Cool. All right, Brad. Well, we know you're at the community center itching for a workout, I'm assuming. So we will.
Very low level, turning those dials down. Yes. Don't be shy. Put those plates on the lowest pin and check your ego at the door. Yeah.
That's right. Cool. Thank you so much, Brad. This was great. We will, we look forward to training some Primal Fitness coaches under your tutelage.
Woohoo. Awesome.
Thanks for listening.
Brad.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.